today we just reached a very sad record, which is 100 million COVID-19 cases confirmed globally. And in your letter, you appealed again that it is not too early to prepare for the next pandemic. And to do that, you mentioned that the world needs to have a global alert system. So my question is, given the huge gaps in the development of health systems in countries across the world, how feasible is your proposal? And are there any existing cooperation frameworks that can help us to achieve that? Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of these things I wrote about, my TED Talk was fairly short, and sadly, 95% of the viewership of that came after the pandemic started instead of before. But I also had a companion article in the New England Journal of Medicine that went into more detail about some of my ideas. Now, my ideas are now 5 years more advanced because the idea of how you can do very high-scale PCR testing, we have some prototypes there that prove it can be done at very low cost and very high volume. Our ideas about antibodies have come along a great deal, how we could coordinate trials. And even these field-based activities, which, as you say, may be the most difficult part. We have diagnostic machines like the Lamira that we can get out into Africa, and because it's a very cheap platform and easy to use, that kind of thing can be done even at the primary healthcare center. Then we need to investigate deaths that don't fit the normal pattern. And so we have a thing called the CHAMPS network, where we look at all these different deaths and even gather biological samples and do the equivalent of what you would normally call an autopsy to make sure we understand, is this a new pathogen, something that we should immediately get worried about and start to develop vaccines and drugs against it. I think between what we've done with these new diagnostic machines getting out, funding for primary health care, this disease corps of epidemiologists that will immediately drop their work on things like malaria and polio if they see the risk of an epidemic, but be funded so that they're always there, ready to go with their skill sets, very, very sharp. The overall cost for all these things, is not gigantic. It's about half the R&D money and half the field activities. The world will decide if all that field work, should be coordinated under WHO or part of it under, African CDC. What is the best way to raise that money and organize that? And, we're being very specific about our thoughts, while people are still realizing how bad the pandemic is, and hope that at the May World Health Assembly, which is the meeting for the World Health Organization governance body, that people will bring forward their ideas, including the role of WHO, how WHO needs to improve, needs more resources, and how what WHO is doing connects up with the countries, the regions, even somewhat with the private sector, because in many countries, the factories, the diagnostic capacity, the ability to do the drug trials is very much in the private sector hands. And that coordination, although our foundation is proud that we've facilitated that, it wasn't as well organized as it needed to be. And any time that you lose, results in lives lost. So, this is the year to get that plan together. So we have to do two things at once: end this pandemic and fund the blueprint for being able to say we are ready for the next pandemic.